Welcome back to Smash Class. My name is Ramses, and today I will be taking you through the psychology in Smash. Last episodes were all about playing the game optimally. Now we're going to be talking about thinking about the game. So how do you approach the game mentally? It's going to be super exciting because this is where it starts getting really interesting, and we're going to go in depth in some of the things that you don't hear about, the things that you have to learn through experience, and I'm going to give you a shortcut to getting there just a little bit faster in this week's episode where we talk about the RPS, the rock paper scissors in Smash. So when talking about competitive games, one of the first things that comes to mind for me is RPS. I am a game designer myself by profession, and a lot of the design behind competitive games revolves around RPS. If you've ever played League before, something that you probably heard before is counterplay, right? And counterplay and RPS are essentially the same thing. Now, to explain that statement, let's take a look at what RPS is. So RPS is enabled by two elements. On one hand, we have viable options. So this means that there are always multiple options that counter each other. In other words, there are always choices, right? On the other hand, we have double blind. So double blind means that when you pick your option, you don't know exactly what the state of the game is. So with RPS, when you both reveal your option, you don't know what the opponent picks. In other words, it becomes a little bit of a guessing game. Now, this guessing game is what creates the competitive experience and what differentiates it from a single player experience. Let's go into that through first looking at the viable options part of RPS. So viable options basically means that you always have a choice to make. If there is no choice, then there is no interplay with the opponent, right? In that case, you're not making any choices. You might as well be playing against the CPU. For example, in chess, when you're getting checked and you only have one square to move your king to, or one piece that can block it, you're not really making a choice, right? In that situation, you have no agency. So that agency in fighting games is often implemented through these viable options. Now, figuring out these viable options is extremely key to becoming better at fighting games. The other part, which is the double blind aspect, talks more about how do you implement these options, right? So double blind, again, means that you don't know what is happening as you press the button. So when you run up to grab someone, you don't know for sure if they're going to be shielding, if they might be attacking, if they might be dodging just at the last moment, because we have a 20 frame barrier between what you see and what you input. And that 20 frame barrier is partially reaction time. So it's about 13, 14 frames reaction time, and partially input delay. So it's about 6 or 7 frames of input delay, which together creates a 20 frame delay between what you see and what you input, which is 1/3 of a second. Well, of course, this changes a lot about how the game is played. If you could instantly react to everything, then as soon as you saw an attack come out, you would just shield, mitigate the attack. As soon as you saw the grab come out, you would just dodge, mitigate the grab. So very important that you kind of keep this in mind as you think about the game as well, because there are going to be a lot of situations in which you have to make choices with incomplete information. And when you make choices with incomplete information, in other words, you don't know exactly what's happening, the only thing that can inform whether your choice is right or not is understanding the opponent, right? It's kind of like when you play RPS against someone that you know very well, you have a feeling of what they like to do, what are they preferably going to do, and it starts becoming a mind game, and that mind game is very key to Smash. Now let's talk about how RPS very concretely relates to Smash. So a very clear example of RPS in Smash is that blocking beats attacks, grabbing beats blocks, and attacking often beats these grabs, right? So attack, block, and grab together form a very literal RPS triangle. And you almost always have these options available to you, meaning that you almost always have a choice to make between these options. Very important. On the other hand, we have the more attack-related RPS, right? So we talked about like landing aerials and rising aerials in previous weeks, and a rising aerial will often be very fast, right? So you get a hitbox extremely quickly, or a dash attack, very similar, very quick hitbox. But afterwards, there's a lot of lag, a lot of delay before you can do anything. Similarly, doing like landing aerial, right? You only get the landing lag, very short amount of lag, but it takes a while for you to get landing, right? You need to go through an entire jump, then land, then do your aerial. It takes a long time. So we already have like this kind of like interplay where we have an option that is fast but laggy and an option that is slow but safe. And then if you add the option of waiting, right, so delaying your option, you kind of create an RPS triangle. So if they're waiting, you can use that time to set up a landing aerial. Now, if you use time to set up a landing aerial, you can get intercepted. And if you're waiting for your opponent and they try to intercept you, you can often dodge them or like shield and then punish them. So you also create sort of an RPS there. Now, there's a lot more systems like this, and that is what makes Smash so interesting, is that you have to figure out these systems if you want to play it correctly, and they differ per matchup. So to deal with a dash attack from Mario is very different as compared to dealing with a dash attack from Link. And because Link's dash attack is generally weaker, you can play around him in a different way because this tool is less strong. And what we kind of get into there is the idea of weighted RPS. So weighted RPS means that the options are not one-to-one to each other, right? So in normal RPS, you win with Rock, you get 1 point. You lose with Rock, you lose 1 point. In Smash, if your Rock is shield, right, then Mario's shield might get you more reward because his up shield is better than, for example, Sephiroth's shield, because he doesn't have a lot of auto shield options. So Rock for Mario might get him like a 5-point win, and Rock for shield might get him a 0 point, right? So it draws at best. So in that situation, Sephiroth prefers to use less shield and makes up for it with other tools, whereas Mario might use more shield because he gets more reward out of it. So figuring out not just the options at play, but also how they're weighted as opposed to each other, that kind of creates the basis of your play. So let me give you a very concrete example, right? We all have that friend, Pikachu player, comes out the gate spamming neutral B. It's just Thunder Jolt after Thunder Jolt. And you just cannot seem to beat him. He just keeps spamming it. You don't know what to do. Well, in that situation, he is constantly using scissors, right? In our RPS analogy, he's constantly using scissors. So you got to figure out what is the rock that beats the scissors. And that is where it gets interesting, because if there is no rock, then the character would be invincible. It would be unbeatable. They can just repeatedly use this option and you cannot beat them for it. But obviously, that would not be the case, because in that situation, right, everyone will be playing that character in competitive play. There has to be some sort of counterplay. There has to be a rock to their scissors. So you have to figure out what's a rock. And that is the mentality behind RPS and Smash. There is always counterplay. There's always something you can do about what the opponent does. Whether it's rolling, dashing in the right way, jumping in the right way, shielding, parrying, jumping over something, clanking it away, using your own hitbox. There's so many options in Smash. You can take away stage control from the opponent, right? Push them into the corner. There's so many things you can do. There's always an answer. And it's up to you to figure out what your answer is to what the opponent does, right? So what does your character do to beat what the opponent's character does, but also to understand your opponent well enough to beat them when they use it. The final thing to consider is the context behind these options. So this is a really cool thing about Smash, and that's that there's so many various options, right? So when I'm standing next to someone, they have different options available to them than when I'm standing far away from someone, because when I'm standing far away, right, their moves might not hit all the way to the other side of the stage. So the options at play, the optimal choices, and the way to punish them, it all changes per situation. So when you're figuring out how to beat your opponents, it's very important that you keep in mind that you need to consider the situations when figuring out your RPS options. So when we talk about Pikachu Thunder Jolt, you might be able to beat it when you're standing right next to them, but when they're further away, there might not be as much of counterplay available. So in that situation, instead of hitting them, you might, like I said before, need to take away some stage control, right? So approach the Pikachu, make the situation become close range, and then you can beat it when he uses it there. So changing the situation, changing the context is also an option in and of itself. So it's kind of separate. So we kind of have like engaging in the RPS, and then we can also decide to just like try to change the situation entirely. So consider the context of these options. And the final option to consider is that Smash is asynchronous. So whereas with RPS, you reveal your options at the same time, with Smash, you don't have to. So you can react to what the opponent does. So when you're changing situations, keep an eye on your opponent. See if they can maybe, if they whiff a move, if they miss a move, you can come back in and try to punish them during the end leg of that move. So very important that, you know, you understand that you can engage, right? So that's very much about like, you know, taking the guess, trying to read your opponent, but there's also a very, very big aspect of the game, which is revolved more around reacting to the opponents and using your movements to basically make them miss or make them make a mistake, and then coming back in to punish them. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know that was a lot to go over, but I hope you guys could follow along. Be sure to rewatch the video if there's some parts that you don't understand quite yet. For now, guys, I hope to see you next week as we dive deeper and deeper into the psychology behind Smash. For now, of course, you beautiful people, stay smart.